The perfect neighborhood. Marcus Williams loved his Saturday runs through Willowbrook Estates. Perfect lawns, pristine sidewalks, houses like magazine covers. After 20 years in cramped apartments, owning a home here felt like winning the lottery. That's why Mrs. Henderson's house bothered him. Her grass was 3 inches instead of 2, a small oil stain on her driveway, her mailbox slightly crooked. In Willowbrook, these imperfections stood out like blood on snow. "Morning, Mrs. Henderson," Marcus called as she pulled weeds. She looked up with tired eyes. "Beautiful morning." "Need help with the yard work?" "That's kind, but I'm managing." She glanced nervously at Mr. Patterson washing his spotless car. "Though I should work faster." "It's Saturday. No rush. In Willowbrook, there's always a rush to be perfect." Over the following weeks, Marcus noticed neighbors crossing the street to avoid her house. At the HOA meeting, whispered conversations stopped when he sat down. "We need to discuss the Henderson situation," announced President Janet Walsh. "Property values are at stake." "What situation?" "Her declining standards. The weeds, the stained driveway. She's elderly, doing her best." "Are you volunteering to help her meet community standards?" Every gaze bore into him. "Sure." The smiles returned. "Wonderful. The community appreciates neighbors who care." But when Marcus knocked on Mrs. Henderson's door, she answered with fear in her eyes. "You don't understand. They don't want me to succeed. They want me to fail. They just want perfect lawns." "Perfect everything. But what happens to the imperfect ones?" She grabbed his arm. The Johnsons at 1247 had dying roses. One morning, gone. The Garcia's son graffitied their fence. Gone. The Chens had a crying baby, all relocated suddenly. People move. I've lived here 5 years. 12 families gone. Always the ones who couldn't maintain standards. Marcus mowed her lawn and fixed her mailbox. But as he worked, he felt eyes watching from every window. At dinner, Linda was quiet. Janet Walsh called. She mentioned our garbage cans were 6 inches too far from the curb. Marcus had lived here 6 months without complaints. Impossible. I measured. She was right. Over the next week, infractions appeared on his property. Brown spots on his lawn, a loose shutter. His newspaper collected too slowly. Then Marcus saw the moving truck outside the Thompsons' house. He jogged over. "Where are you headed?" Mrs. Thompson looked around nervously. "Job transfer. Very sudden." But Mr. Thompson shook his head, mouthing silently. "Help us." Janet Walsh appeared beside Marcus. "Sudden opportunities present themselves. The Thompsons are excited." Mr. Thompson's eyes showed terror, but he nodded. "Very excited." That evening, Marcus walked the neighborhood at midnight. Every house dark, every lawn perfect, beautiful and sterile and wrong. Mrs. Henderson's silhouette watched from her window. Next morning brought an HOA letter listing Marcus's infractions. 30 days to correct or face community action. At the bottom, "We hope you'll make the right choice for everyone involved." Marcus knocked on Mrs. Henderson's door. "We need to talk." Inside, every piece of furniture was covered in plastic. Nothing looked lived in. "I've been trying to be perfect, but it's never enough," she said. "What really happens to families who leave?" She was quiet. Then, "I don't think they leave voluntarily. The community garden behind the HOA building, 12 new flower beds added in 5 years. Always after a family relocates." Marcus felt cold. "Perfect flowers that never need tending?" That night he couldn't sleep. The next morning, his violations had multiplied. Crooked doormat, a leaf on his porch, smudged house numbers. "Maybe we should move," Linda whispered. Janet called again. "The community's concerned about our commitment." Marcus looked at the perfect street, perfect neighbors watching from behind curtains. "Pack a bag, we're leaving today." As they loaded their car, Janet Walsh appeared on her porch with that sharp smile. Leaving so soon? Just time to go. Drive safely. As they pulled away, Mrs. Henderson stood in her doorway, raising her hand in goodbye. But Marcus saw the moving truck already turning onto her street. 3 months later, driving through town, Marcus detoured past Willowbrook. The neighborhood looked identical. Mrs. Henderson's house had new owners who waved cheerfully. In the community garden, fresh flowers bloomed in a new bed near the back. 13 beds now. Marcus drove away and never returned. But sometimes he dreams of perfect neighborhoods where imperfect people disappear, and flowers bloom unnaturally bright in soil that's never been disturbed. The Antique Mirror. Rebecca Torres had always loved estate sales. There was something thrilling about sifting through a stranger's life, finding treasures among the forgotten things. The Victorian mirror she discovered at the Whitmore estate sale was exactly the kind of piece she'd been hunting for. It was magnificent, 6 feet tall with an ornate silver frame carved with roses and thorns. The price tag said $200, which seemed too good to be true for something so beautiful. When Rebecca asked about it, the elderly woman running the sale just shrugged. Been in the attic for decades. Previous owners left it behind when they sold the house to the Whitmores in 1987. Mrs. Whitmore never liked it much. Rebecca loaded the mirror into her SUV, already imagining it in her bedroom. It would be perfect above her antique dresser. That first night, she positioned the mirror carefully and stepped back to admire it. The reflection showed her bedroom exactly as it was, her 4-poster bed, the cream-colored walls, the reading chair by the window. But something felt off about her own reflection. She looked paler somehow, more drawn. Long day, she told herself, and went to bed. The next morning, Rebecca noticed the mirror had shifted slightly overnight. Not much, maybe an inch to the left. She must have bumped it while getting ready for bed. She adjusted it back to center and headed to work. But when she came home that evening, it had moved again. This time she was certain she hadn't touched it. The mirror now hung at a slight angle, tilted just enough to catch the light differently. Standing before it, Rebecca studied her reflection. Again, she looked wrong somehow. Her skin seemed almost translucent. And were those dark circles under her eyes? She'd been sleeping fine. That's when she noticed the other woman. She was standing just behind Rebecca's left shoulder, visible in the mirror, but when Rebecca spun around, no one was there. Heart pounding, she turned back to the mirror. The woman was still there, middle-aged, wearing a faded blue dress from maybe the 1950s. Her face was kind but sad, and she was trying to mouth something. Rebecca stumbled backward, and the reflection returned to normal. Just her own pale face staring back. Over the next few days, the woman appeared more frequently, always in the mirror, never in the room itself. She seemed to be trying to communicate, gesturing frantically, pointing at something Rebecca couldn't see. Rebecca researched the mirror's history. The Whitmore house had belonged to the Hendersons before 1987. Margaret Henderson had lived there alone after her husband died in 1982. According to newspaper archives, Margaret had disappeared in 1986. Her body was never found, and the case went cold. The woman in the mirror looked exactly like the photos of Margaret Henderson. One evening, Margaret's reflection became more agitated than usual. She was pointing insistently at the mirror's frame, specifically at a carved rose near the bottom right corner. Rebecca examined it closely and discovered the rose was actually a small hidden latch. When she pressed it, a compartment opened in the frame's backing, revealing a folded piece of paper. The note was written in shaky handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Harold didn't die of a heart attack like everyone thinks. I saw what really happened. I have proof hidden in the basement. He's coming for me tonight. The mirror sees everything. It remembers. Tell them to look behind the furnace. Margaret Henderson." Rebecca's hands shook as she read. She called the police, but they were skeptical. The case was decades old. The house had changed hands multiple times. Without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. But Rebecca couldn't let it go. Margaret's reflection appeared every night now, more desperate each time. The woman had trusted her with this secret, and Rebecca felt responsible for seeing it through. She drove to the old Henderson house, now owned by a young family named the Garcias. When she explained the situation, Mrs. Garcia was intrigued enough to let her check the basement. Behind the furnace, exactly where Margaret's note indicated, they found a metal box. Inside were photographs of Harold Henderson with another woman, bank statements showing he'd been stealing from Margaret's inheritance, and a recording device with a tape labeled Harold's Confession, Insurance Money. The tape revealed Harold admitting to poisoning his wife slowly with antifreeze, making it look like heart failure. But Margaret had discovered his plan and recorded him confessing to a friend about his scheme and his affair. When the police finally listened to the evidence, they reopened the case. Harold Henderson was long dead, but they found Margaret's remains in a shallow grave on property he'd owned outside town. She was finally laid to rest properly. That night, Rebecca stood before the mirror one last time. Margaret's reflection appeared, but she looked different now. Peaceful, younger somehow. She smiled at Rebecca and mouthed, "Thank you," before fading away completely. The mirror never moved again. Rebecca's reflection returned to normal, healthy, and vibrant. She thought about selling the mirror, but decided to keep it. It was beautiful, and it had served an important purpose. Sometimes, late at night, she thought she caught glimpses of other faces in the glass, people from different eras wearing different clothes. The mirror had been around for a long time, had belonged to many people. Perhaps Margaret wasn't the only one who'd left an impression on it. But those other faces seemed content to simply be seen, to be remembered. They didn't need Rebecca's help like Margaret had. They were just reminders that everyone leaves traces behind, and sometimes those traces linger in the most unexpected places. Rebecca kept the mirror for years, and it never caused her any trouble, but she always treated it with respect, understanding that some objects hold more than just reflections. They hold memories, secrets, and sometimes the desperate hope that someone will listen to what they have to say.
The night caller Sarah Chen worked the night shift at 911 dispatch for 2 years. She'd heard everything until the call at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in November. 911. What's your emergency? Silence. Then a child's voice. I can't find my mommy. What's your name, sweetheart? Emma. Emma Hartwell. I'm 7. Sarah typed in Hartwell. Nothing. What's your address, Emma? 1247 Maple Street. The blue house with the white fence. The address showed as vacant lot. Sarah dispatched units while keeping Emma talking. It's really dark and cold here. The lights don't work and the refrigerator stopped. Officer Martinez radioed back. Dispatch, no house at 1247 Maple. Just empty lot with foundation stones. Sarah felt ice in her veins. Emma, are you still there? Yes, but I'm scared. I can hear scratching, like something trying to get in. We've canvassed 6 blocks, Martinez reported. No blue house anywhere. The call showed as active, but from where? Emma, there's a new door. It wasn't there before. It's really big and dark. Don't go near that door, honey. But what if Mommy went through it? Sarah heard small footsteps echoing. Emma, no, The sound of a door creaking open. Then Emma's voice, distant now. I found her. Mommy's here, but she looks old. There are so many people here. They're saying, "Welcome home." The line went dead. Next morning, Sarah drove to 1247 Maple Street. Just an empty lot, but with an old mailbox marked 1247. She knocked on doors until Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived there 40 years, invited her in. There was a house there once, burned down in 1987. Whole family died. Parents and little Emma, 7 years old. Never found the bodies, just ash and foundation stones. Sarah's blood ran cold. Strange thing was, I heard a child calling for help that night, but the phone lines had burned through. Couldn't have been a real call. That night, Sarah requested transfer to day shift. But 3 weeks later, working her last night shift, the call came again at 3:17 a.m. I can't find my mommy. Emma, it's Sarah. You don't need to find your mommy. She's not lost. You are. Silence. You died in the fire, Emma, a long time ago. What you're seeing isn't real anymore. It's a memory, and you're trapped in it. But I can see my room. Do you remember the fire? Very quietly, yes. It was so hot, I couldn't breathe. Your parents died too. They're somewhere safe now, and they want you to join them. Stop looking for the house. Look for the light instead. Emma cried softly. Then I see it. There's a warm light, and I can hear Mommy calling. Happy calling, not sad. Go to her, Emma. Go home. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for helping me remember. Sarah never got another call from Emma Hartwell. The empty lot was sold and turned into a memorial garden with night-blooming jasmine around the old foundation stones. On warm evenings, neighbors say the flowers smell like childhood and safety, like a mother's goodnight kiss.